one part of the speech, and the speech was passionate, it was at times fiery, Fred, was that he basically said, we thought the army was going to be able to stand up to the Taliban, and then kind of moved on. The country fell in 11 days. So if you think the army can withstand the Taliban and doesn't even last 2 weeks, I think that's the miscalculation made by military leaders that needs to be examined a little more in depth. Would you agree?
I think it has to be looked at, but you also have to understand that ever since we started negotiating with the Taliban during the Trump administration, without including the Afghan government in that talks, we undermined the credibility of the Afghan government. And then as that continues at the beginning of the Biden administration in April, it further undermines the morale. And this is a society where you want to be on the winning side. And it was clear to a lot of the soldiers that they either had to go back home, they had to get out of the country, or they had to join the Taliban, and they did all three of those things.
Well, how much then should fall on Afghan President Ghani? I mean, he's a U.S. educated. He was a professor at Johns Hopkins. He never gave us any heads up that he was even going to leave the nation, not according to any report that I have read. Should his administration have gotten in touch with our administration and said, listen, we cannot hold the country. When you leave, the Taliban are going to overrun everything, and we need a better plan. Maybe that call occurred, but we have no indication that it did.
I think we're going to have a lot of backward looking. What could we have done differently? What do we need to do now? Who was responsible? A lot of finger pointing. What I'm trying to do right now is look at the way forward. And if there's a silver lining to any of this for the Biden administration, it's that it's happened so early in the administration that they can take some corrective action. And they can also move the conversation to what you had at the top of your hour, which is the economic story. Take care of the COVID situation, take care of the economic situation, infrastructure deal, economic stimulus. That'll take some people's minds off it. But in terms of the Taliban, they probably have to do 3 or 4 things. First of all, this was an administration that was supposed to be talking and consulting closely with its allies. And from April on, that hasn't been the case. Our allies really want us to be focused on consulting with them, as the Biden administration said it was going to do, differentiating itself from the Trump administration. And that has to start not just with Afghanistan, but I would say very deeply on where we're framing China policy, which means much more to our allies. With adversaries, there are 3 areas of immediate danger that I would look at. One of them is Ukraine facing Russia, Taiwan facing China, Iraq facing Iran. This will be a time where you might have some testing of U.S. competence, of U.S. commitment. Is the Biden administration going to stand for these things? It's a bit of a dangerous time from that standpoint. I also think you're now going to have to look at counterterrorism again. We saw ISIS-K operating in Taliban. I think it would be naive to think that Afghanistan can't again be a location for terrorism. And then the really big question that the Biden administration bet on, and somewhat successfully during the evacuation, was, can you bet on the Taliban? Can you partner with the Taliban? And there we have to use economic leverage through the IMF, through sanctions, through trade, and working with a lot of partners, including the Russians and the Chinese, who will have more leverage than we have now in Afghanistan.